amazingly offensive, challenging you to think offensively, challenging you to be a part of the team. This is not regular interference. This is offensive interference. With the baldest man in entertainment, me, Nick Cellini.
And welcome to Offensive Interference. The NFL's preseason is upon us, and a man joining us, no stranger to media, and no stranger to being in a front office either. At one time in the Falcons front office, also the GM of the St. Louis Rams at one time, now doing a ton of work for ESPN. Billy Devaney joining us. And Billy, first of all, thanks for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
This is great, Nick. Always glad to talk football with you.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, what's going on with the Falcons before we do anything else. Talk to me about Matt Ryan's contract. Were you surprised it was as high as it was, or did Thomas Dimitroff really not have a choice?
I wasn't surprised that it was that it wound up being as high as it came out to be, and yeah, pretty much Thomas didn't really have a choice. I mean, the parameters have been set by some of the other quarterbacks, and actually, he's an elite quarterback in the prime of his career, and we know how important that position is, and the Falcons just took care of that, the most important position on the team for years to come, and he's everything you want. So I'm thrilled that a guy like that gets rewarded, because as great as he is on the field, he's a great ambassador for the Falcons off the field. So I think it's a win-win for the Falcons and for Matt Ryan.
It's funny that you say that, because here's a guy that stepped in, along with Thomas Dimitroff and Mike Smith, to a franchise that was essentially directionless back in 2008. And you've seen some franchises around the NFL. You know what happens. If you have a high draft choice and you pick the wrong guy, that can set you back 5 to 10 years, can it not?
Oh, not just the wrong guy, especially the wrong quarterback. That's devastating if you take the wrong guy. You hitch your wagon to a first-round pick, and this is the guy that you signed on to be the face of the franchise and who you're going to build your team around. And if it turns out that, number one, he's not as good as you think he is, or his intangibles aren't up to snuff and he's not as good as you think he is, you're right, it's devastating, because you have to see it through. You have to give him a couple of years to prove, to show whether he's the answer or not. And if it gets to the point where after 3 years, then you just wasted 3 years, you wasted a ton of money, the draft pick. Now you got to go restart that process and hope you can come up with a franchise guy. And you're right, it is absolutely, it's devastated mighty people and many a franchise.
Well, for those that don't know, I know you've told the story a few times in conversations you've had with me in the past. Indulge me again, though, because going back to 1998, that draft, it was Peyton Manning going number 1 to the Colts, and you were involved, you and Bobby Beathard, in San Diego. And I hate to remind you again, but you guys selected Ryan Leaf, and you knew pretty much right away something was going to be wrong, did you not?
Almost immediately. There were warning signs about Ryan. There were some red flags, things to be aware of. Certainly not that you couldn't take him, but it was to handle him a certain way and coach him a certain way. So we felt comfortable. I know the Colts thought long and hard about taking Leaf. They were torn about whether to take Manning or Leaf. I know it got down to the 11th hour before they decided on Peyton, and that left us with Leaf. And I think the thing what I knew right away, I had a bad feeling. You bring your draft picks in right away to the city, those first round guys, and we talked to Leaf right after the pick, and I said, well, you're back there with the owner. We have the owners playing. He said, well, I can't come in. I said, what do you mean you can't come in? So my best friend is getting married in Las Vegas, and I'm his best man in the wedding party. I've got to stop in Las Vegas. I can be there first thing in the morning. I don't think Penny would exactly take the same course of action. So right then I thought we may have screwed this thing up pretty bad.
Isn't that amazing? In this day and age, that couldn't happen, because somebody would have a cell phone and somebody would take a picture, somebody would record a video, and then you'd have, as an organization, another mess to clean up.
No question. And I didn't need to see the pictures, because he showed up the next day with his agent, and I think he still was a little bit tipsy, and he looked like hell. He was disheveled, and What apprehension I had the night before was confirmed the next day when he showed up.
So you knew. You look at Bobby Beathard, and you know, and certainly it didn't get much better. But going back to the positive, let's talk about the Falcons and their offensive line, where seemingly they're dropping like flies. You've been in a situation where you have to bring in guys midway through or late through training camp. With Mike Johnson going down with the broken ankle, the broken leg, what do you go through right now if you're Thomas Dimitroff? Do you have a list in your proverbial desk drawer of guys that are still free agents floating around?
Oh, absolutely. And they're two different kind of lists. They're the real players, the veterans that have played that if you bring in, in a couple of weeks they can line up and play. And then there's college free agents that basically are just going to help you get through camp. If the fourth string safety gets hurt, and then you're going to, and you have to replace them. Then there's a certain list of college guys that just graduated or first year guys. You don't expect to make the team, but you bring them in and give them a shot. Then there are the real players that have, with NFL experience. And the reason why those veterans are still out there right now, but with the Falcons, I think Thomas was really smart. I mean, they saved some, like we talked about earlier, it was a big contract with Matt, but it actually helped them and gave them a little wiggle room on the salary cap. And if a veteran tackle presents himself, then he may not be out there right now. So they had that list, and it wasn't like as soon as Johnson got hurt, it's like, oh gosh, what are we going to do now? Every team has that list ready to go, and if they think there's a guy out there that they can help them get through this year, they'll act on it.
Well, it's funny that you say that, too, because with the salary cap being the way it is, yes, eventually when Ryan signs the contract extension, it saves them money. But the reason that they had to replace, or an opening anyway, at right tackle, they had to replace Tyson Clabo, who they had to cut as a result. That's just life in the National Football League. That's why I guess it's so important not only to get first-rounders right, but nowadays, second, third, fourth-rounders. A lot of these guys have to step in and play right away, do they not?
No question. And at the end of the day, you're right. Whether you're talking about a first-round pick, whether you're talking about an unrestricted free agent you're bringing in, or whether you're talking about your players that are up and you have to resign, the evaluation, it always comes down to the evaluation. You have to be right. Now, you're not going to be perfect. Everybody's going to have their whips now and then, but at the end of the day, your batting average has to be pretty damn good for you to be a successful team.
It's amazing, too. There isn't necessarily, not that there was a lot of downtime 10, 15 years ago, but it seems to me like there's even less downtime now. I know that the NFL as a whole probably prefers it that way because the fans stay involved. But as a guy in the front office, what do you get, 1 or 2 weeks a year to kind of unwind?
Oh, my gosh, it's incredible. People don't realize it. The draft is over now. The college draft is over, and within 2 or 3 weeks, every team is going down to, there's two different types of scouting services. Within 2 or 3 weeks after the draft, personnel departments start looking at tape of juniors and where they have to go and putting their schedules together. So there isn't any downtime. But I tell you, Nick, if you talk to anybody working in the NFL, they wouldn't trade it. There's not a whole lot of people leaving on their own, leaving the NFL. It's as tough and demanding and as cutthroat as it can be. It is an awesome experience, and it's a great business to be part of.
It beats having a real job. That's what I always tell people about the entertainment field, the field of the media.
It is Offensive Interference with yours truly, Nick Cellini.
ALS doesn't just kill you. It shuts you down, little by little, bit by bit.
It starts small. Maybe it's holding a pencil that gets difficult.
Or getting up from your chair.
Then you find it hard to turn the pages of your book.
Because you can't move your fingers.
Your mind keeps working, but your body doesn't respond.
You won't see it coming because no one knows where it comes from.
Soon you can't hug your mother or pick up your child.
You won't be able to tie your shoes.
You don't need to tie your shoes because now you can't walk.
You can't eat or shave.
Or laugh or sing.
First you can't catch the ball, then you can't catch your breath.
ALS doesn't just kill you.
It steals your life, a little bit at a time.
And it doesn't stop until there's nothing left.
Unless we stop it first.
Unless we stop it now.
I'm Dave Gleason. Let's put our heads together and find a cure for ALS.
talk about a guy you had in St. Louis who's here now in Atlanta, Steven Jackson. He and Michael Turner are just about the same age, but dare I say, aside from playing the same position, that might be all they have in common.
Yeah, nothing against Turner. I mean, he had a lot of carries and he had a lot of wear and tear on his body. He did a heck of a job, but Steven at this point just has more juice. And when you think about the Falcon offense a year ago, adding Steven Jackson to it, my God, it just ratchets up even better. If it all comes down to the skilled guys who know the quarterbacks, even like he talks about, that offensive line has to come together. They're only going to be as good as that offensive line makes them be. But Steven Jackson hides a lot of flaws. He's as good a runner as he is. He's a tremendous pass protector. He's a super smart player. You can use him in a variety of spots in the backfield, motion him at fullback in the passing game. But the biggest thing at the end of the day, especially as much as the Falcons like to throw the ball, if you can't pass protect and you don't know who to block, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to be able to get on the field. So between Jackson and Quiz Rogers, they're two super smart guys and do a great job protecting Matt Ryan.
You know, Billy, it's funny, too. You say the Falcons, and they do. They love to throw the football. But in the postseason last year, they had a hard time running the football, especially after Michael Turner sprained his ankle in that 49er game in the NFC title game. I think if you have that running presence, a Steven Jackson, or even a healthy Michael Turner last year, maybe they keep that 49er offense off the field long enough to pull that game out.
Absolutely. There's no question. And you watch, too, one of the greatest. I mean, obviously I'm a huge fan of Steven Jackson. But so many really good traits about him. Another one is he keeps himself in tremendous condition. And let's face it, we didn't have a whole lot of offensive weapons in St. Louis while I was there. Steven was the guy, and we rode him, and the guy never got tired. In the fourth quarter, he's still running hard and has great stamina. And with a team like the Falcons, when you're looking to put a team away or to have a long drive to not give the ball back, that he is the perfect guy to have on the field.
You know, in St. Louis, you get a guy who's a pocket passer in Sam Bradford, Matt Ryan, pocket passer here, and a lot of people are talking about the spread offense and guys that can move a little bit, RG3, to a certain extent, Russell Wilson. Do you believe still you need that guy with that pocket presence to win a championship? Is that ever going to change in the NFL?
Yeah. No, and that's the key word. Matt's got great pocket presence. He's a tough guy to sack. One, because he sees where pressure's coming from pre-snap. I mean, he's not dropping back trying to figure out what's going on. The guy is so smart. He has great anticipation where pressure is coming from, and he feels it. He feels like there's going to be some leakage. He's going to throw the ball away. Let's face it, he's not going to scramble. I mean, that's not his deal. He's not fleet of foot, and that's being kind. But that being said, there's guys like that. Matt, the guy that was here a few years, Matt Schaub down in Houston, it's the same way. Matt's not a great athlete. He's one of the most difficult guys to sack because they can get rid of the ball. They know where the pressure's coming from. They have great anticipation with their receivers. So there's different ways to get it done. And again, while Matt's not a great runner, he's still, his pocket presence makes him a hard guy to sack.
Well, I go back to the pocket presence, the pocket passers, and certainly Colin Kaepernick has a great arm as well. Do you think, because it always seems to be this way, NFL defenses will always adjust. The Wildcat, what are they going to do? Well, they stopped it eventually. Will they do the same thing with these spread option, if you will, quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit more difficult, but that spread option now, if you can throw the ball, and that's the key. I mean, you can have a running quarterback back there where defenses just thumb their nose and say, well, let him run, because we know he's not going to be a throwing ball. He's a scatter-on. He can't throw. But if you're a dual threat, that's a tremendous amount of pressure on a defense, and that's what Kaepernick has going for him. I mean, he can run the ball a little bit, but again, I hate to bring it up against the Falcons last year. I don't think he necessarily beat him with his legs. He did the week before against Green Bay, but my God, he threw the heck out of the football that day against Atlanta and showed a lot of people what type of big-time thrower he actually is.
Well, speaking of the Falcons' defense, it seems to be a lot more questions than answers, especially on the defensive line. Some of these young guys, much like Lamar Holmes at right tackle on the defensive line, these young guys are going to have to step up and produce this year.
Yeah, they are. And we were talking about it, part of our show on the ESPN a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about key guys besides the quarterback. That's always the obvious guy. And when we got to the Falcons, I brought up, I said, okay, the key guy for me on the Falcons this year, the two receivers going to be greater. You get their numbers. Gonzalez is going to be productive and get his numbers. Matt's going to be really good. Steven's going to get his. The key guy for me, I think, for the Falcons is O.C. Umenyiora. He's got to be their dominant pass rusher. He's taken the place of John Abraham, and who actually, Abe, the past 3 years has been a better pass rusher than O.C. O.C.'s younger. He's probably more stout against the run, can play more snaps than Abe, but he's the one guy that has to step up and be the war daddy, rushing the quarterback. If it doesn't come from O.C., then it comes down to Mike Nolan creating pressures. So that only goes so far. When you do that, you're exposing yourself. You're taking chances. And Nolan is as good as they come. But at the end of the day, you'd like it at some point. Say, okay, you guys in the front have to go after it. It's on you. So I'm really anxious to see what OC brings to the table this year.
You feel good, or do you feel bad when you have fast guys, aggressive guys, but rookies when you talk about the two corners that the Falcons drafted?
Well, I think they're really talented guys, and I think they're mature. They're the right type of. They're NFL ready. It's not like if you throw them out there in week one, they're going to be wide-eyed and like, oh my God, I'm playing in the NFL. They have that athletic arrogance that you want to play that position, that you have to have. If you're not confident and think, even if you get beat, it's like, well, the guy was lucky on that one. I'll kick his butt this play. Those guys have that, and they're not going to wilt. Listen, I mean that's a tough position for any to play. Asante Samuel's going to get torched. We know that. That's just the nature of that spot. But I think these kids, besides being physically gifted, I think the mental makeup, they're going to be able to play, and they're going to be successful. They're going to be successful right away. If they can be as good as, again, it gets back to if they're getting after the quarterback like I hope they can.
Billy, before we let you go, opening preseason game, Bengals and Falcons. It's going to be on national TV. Everybody knows about some of the big names who aren't necessarily going to play. As a GM, what do you look for in this first preseason game, aside from getting out healthy?
Well, exactly right. What I look for at the end of the play, everybody gets up off the pile. That's first and foremost. From the opening snap to the final whistle, that's first and foremost. But there's still some competition. Now, I guarantee you, every NFL team right now, if their teams are going to carry 53, they can probably cut their roster pretty much to 47, 48 guys. They know pretty much who that's going to be. But there are some spots that still have to be determined. And that's what you look for, the competition where, whether it's whether it's the draft picks that are going to be able to hold up and you're going to be able to play with them, whether it's the veteran that you may be able to squeeze one more year out, or if the arrow's pointing down so much that you have to replace them. You want to look at where the competition is. You're not worried about if Steven Jackson runs for 50 yards, or Julio or Roddy White. Those guys, that's the last thing you're worried about. But there's going to be like 6, 7, or 8 guys that are bubble guys right now. You want to see how they play under fire.
All right, Billy, going to be a fun NFL season as always, and we'll talk somewhere down the line. We'll be watching for you on ESPN.
Look forward to it, Nick. Thank you.
All right, Billy Devaney with us on Offensive Interference. It rolls on.
It is Offensive Interference with yours truly, Nick Cellini.
Oxygen Financial is now open ITP. Come see us at the corner of Peachtree Road and West Paces Ferry to set up a complimentary meeting. Spend an hour with one of our private CFOs and get a free gift. More importantly, you can change your financial future. Go to oxygenfinancial.net or stop in at 3060 Peachtree Road. That's 3060 Peachtree Road. See you soon.
Back here on Offensive Interference, so the Falcons are 0-1 in the preseason for whatever that's worth. The opening drive, pretty impressive, 8 plays, 57 yards. They go out there and they grab a 3-0 lead. And, well, aside from that, that was pretty much the highlight of the game. And let's talk about the good, the bad, and the really strange. the strange is, starting with Dane Sanzenbacher, John Gruden loved to say his name all night long, and pretty much looking like Jerry Rice as he catches a long touchdown pass after returning a punt, 71 yards for a score, and the 36-yard pass that he catches is the final score of the game that makes it 34-10. Brad Keselowski, NASCAR driver, admonishing the Bears late in the game as he said, "What were you thinking, cutting Dane Sanzenbacher," again, out of Ohio State. So the good, let's start with that and talk about Matt Ryan. Very steady with his performance, and not really a surprise that Matt Ryan, an effective 6.49. I guess you could say good and bad for the backup Dominic Davis. He starts off horrific, but finishes 8 for 19, throws a touchdown pass late in the game. In fact, in the third quarter, that makes it 17-10 to Jason Snelling, the 8-yard score. But the problem is now, and in fact, it's a problem that just about, I would say, every team in the NFL has. There truly isn't a backup quarterback. Should something happen to Matt Ryan, what would truly be the plan B for the Atlanta Falcons? I don't know what it is. I'm not even sure Mike Smith or Thomas Dimitroff at this point know what it is. Dominic Davis knows the system, but the issue with Dominic Davis is the fact that he's never played a snap, never played down one in the NFL. And Mike Tirico and John Gruden during the game listed a handful of the top backup quarterbacks, and really that's all you have. The top, perhaps, backup quarterback in all of the NFL, think about this right now, is Kyle Orton in Dallas, backing up Tony Romo. Matt Castle, perhaps, in Minnesota, who backs up Christian Ponder. You can make a case for those two, as horrific as it seems, being the top two backup quarterbacks. The name also mentioned was Sean Hill of the Detroit Lions. Now, when you're talking about Sean Hill being the best of anything, that tells you that the crop is pretty much non-existent. Never mind the cream of the crop. There might not be a crop. I think the crops died a long, long time ago. So the point with Dominic Davis is what you see is what you get right now. Sean Renfrey, the rookie out of Duke, comes in late, completes 2 out of 4. So if something were to happen to Matt Ryan, there could be a problem. Something else good that happened in the game. I thought Lamar Holmes played pretty well at right tackle. Here's a kid that only played 7 snaps all of last year. High expectations for him. He was, of course, in that battle for right tackle with Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson dislocates his ankle, breaks his leg. But as we talked about with Billy Devaney, this is the way the league now works. You want to sign some guys. You want to take care of your superstars. Sometimes over the long haul, when you sign Matt Ryan, right before training camp begins, the cap drops back down. But don't forget, at the time, they had to release Tyson Clabo, and when you talk about drafting guys, certainly in the first round, second, third, fourth round even, these guys often are expected to step in and play right away. Somebody that's probably going to step in and play right away, maybe even perhaps ahead of the first-round draft choice, a guy that plays the same position as him, Mr. Trufant, is Robert Alford, who was confident, who was cocky, and who was very effective in this game. And let me tell you this, John Gruden said he had a chance to see him over the course of the past couple of days at Flowery Branch, talked to some other people there. He was beat a couple of times early in training camp, but that's nothing to be ashamed of when you're a rookie corner being beaten by guys like Roddy White and Julio Jones. Robert Alford was all over the place, played extended time, and again, confidence is not going to be an issue with him or Trufant. Something else, in case you're just tuning into the podcast, rewind it a little bit. It's something else we talked to Billy Devaney about. You have to have confidence. You have to have short memories when you're a defensive back in the NFL. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or you're a guy like Asante Samuel. There's going to be times where you're going to be beaten, and you have to maximize every opportunity you get. And even if you screw them up, you got to forget quick, because the opportunity for you to make another play is going to come pretty quickly. Another great story, Brian Banks, coming in late in the game after spending 5 years wrongly accused of sexual assault, rape, wrongly accused, falsely accused, 5 years in jail, 5 years probation, had committed to Southern Cal, and he comes in late in the game in the fourth quarter, makes a tackle, whatever was left of the crowd gives him a nice ovation. Not really sure if Brian Banks is going to make this team, but as he talked about, and he will continue to talk about, it's just a game. When you think about where he was in life, when you think about what he was facing, what he did face, wrongly accused, and for him to have such the positive attitude, not only being a free man, but also not being angry seemingly at all, not having a chip on his shoulder at all, just enjoying being out there playing football. Another fantastic story. Now, the flip side, we talk about Trufant, who got trucked early in this game by Jermaine Grisham, the tight end of the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a welcome to the NFL moment as Grisham runs him over. Now, he's supposed to be the starter at corner. Based on only one game, only one preseason game, I know it means next to nothing, but based on what we saw in this preseason game, it seems like Robert Alford may have the edge on Trufant. Again, plenty more games to play. It remains to be seen. Special teams, is that going to be an issue? I don't know, but when Sanzenbacher takes the punt, 71 yards for the score, the issue there was the punt by Matt Bosher. Not one of his better punts, although I don't know if that's necessarily going to be an issue. Also dealing with mobile quarterbacks, something else to be concerned with, perhaps this young defensive line, not a lot of guys stepping up, getting their opportunity to play, and they'll continue to get opportunities to play throughout the preseason. Josh Johnson, 9 of 16 for 100 yards, throws the touchdown pass. He also runs for 60-plus yards, and I know it was against a lot of backups, but think about this as well. A lot of times what you see in preseason games, you see a vanilla defense. I was really surprised that Mike Nolan was as aggressive as he was. Now, perhaps he wants to see how some of these younger guys are going to play in this scheme. Maybe that's why he was blitzing as often as he did, but he blitzed a lot in this contest. So the Falcons go down. We all know it means next to nothing. 34-10 is the final. And with that, we wrap up offensive interference. I want to thank Billy Devaney for joining us a little bit earlier in the program. A little preview for next week. Following the PGA Championship, my big brother, Vince Cellini, in New York covering the PGA Championship. He'll be sitting down with me next Wednesday. So looking forward to that. And as always, we thank you for listening. And please, please, please follow me on Twitter at Nick Cellini, at OI. That would stand for offensive interference. At OI with Nick Cellini on Twitter as well. Check us out on Facebook too. And the websites are on the way. Please tell a friend, tell 10 friends, and so on and so forth. We'll talk to you next week.
It is offensive interference with yours truly, Nick Cellini.